Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's FIBERTalk webinar. My name is Rusafi Alam. I'm the manager of FTTH Council Asia Pacific. I hope during this pandemic situation, everyone is keeping safe. Today, our webinar will be focused on some important council updates and the unveiling of FTTH APAC Panorama 2020 report. Council updates will be given by our Vice President, Mr. Raj Mathai. He is here with us, and the FTTH APAC Panorama report will be presented by Roland Montagne. He is the principal analyst of broadband and FTTX at IDET DigiWorld. He is with us too. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. If we have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel. I'll bring them up after the presentation ends. There will be a separate Q&A session at the finishing session. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Raj Mathai. Please welcome Raj.
Thank you, Safi. Okay, thank you all for joining us at our FIBERTalk webinar on FTTH APAC Panorama unveiling. First of all, I would like to welcome all of you on behalf of the Council, and I would also like to express our special gratitude to all our members and supporters for getting our time in this crisis situation. As the global economy continues to reel from the shock and the lasting impact of the novel coronavirus outbreak, most of the companies continue their daily work from home. Not only offices, but also the whole world now is dependent on telecom sector. The telecom sector is the invisible hand driving this shift. This situation is very challenging for the entire telecommunication sector because of the new demands around the world. Many of our members are finding ways to ensure fiber connection are being made available to the unserved and underserved. Finally, the fiber remains the critical infrastructure for all 21st century communications. In this circumstance, we would be happy to stay with you. We encourage you all to take extra care for one another. More than ever, it is important that we stay in contact, offer help and kindness to each other, and do our best to keep ourselves and our ecosystem in good health. I believe you are already aware that we have postponed all of our FIBERTalks under further notice, thus move our focus on digital webinar platform. We are planning a series of interesting webinars in coming months so that the industry gets benefited from all the sessions. And the FTTH, as you know, the FTTH APAC Conference 2020 was postponed, was planned this month and was postponed due to this corona situation. However, we are always striving to giving back the best value to our members and communities. Therefore, we are exploring the virtual conference feasibility and shall be back to the industry very soon, hopefully with the good news. Another good news is that since all the organizations are facing challenges tackling the expense down, in this situation, we have recently decided to give a flat 25% discount to all of our existing members and new members for year 2020 as a gesture to our members during this pandemic. For more details, please reach out to our secretariat through our website or our manager. All the other regular council activities are continuing with full force, and we are more agile than the past and continuously trying to improve our activities for a positive impact on the society as a whole. Thank you once again for joining us here in this webinar. I hope this webinar offers you plenty of opportunity to learn, share, and discuss all the ways in which fiber can bring a social and economic prosperity. So let's move now to our main topic for today, to our friend Roland Montagne from IDET DigiWorld for this session, the FTTH Panorama 2020. I think the IDET has done a lot of market research for us, related to FTTH, smart city, and 5G. So I think please welcome Roland.
Thanks a lot, dear Mustafi and dear Raj, for this kind introduction. And it's a true pleasure for me to present this update of FTTH rollout in the APAC region and the market measurement we did at December 2019. I will start with a study background and how we did collect the data. First, this is the 10th edition of this FTTH Panorama for APAC region, and it provides a complete summary of FTTH rollout in 21 countries. You have the list here of the 21 countries analyzed, coming from Australia to Vietnam, China, of course, Hong Kong, Indonesia, South Korea, Philippines, Pakistan, and others. We really have a precise definition of the architecture being observed. We are looking first at fiber to the home or fiber to the building for basement of the building. And we distinguish this architecture to other kind of broadband delivery networks, such as fiber to the node plus VDSL or cable guys with DOCSIS. So this is really a bottom-up methodology. We have many direct contacts by phone, by mail, with all the stakeholders in the region to have first-hand information. And of course, we have also extensive exchange with the members of the FTTH Council APAC. The results are more quantitative, with analysis on the strategy of each player, and also qualitative and quantitative with the number of subscribers, the number of home passed, and the volumes being deployed. First here, I would like to share with you what is the general overview and the main trends in the region at December 2019. At this date, we have measured in the region 459 million FTTH subscribers, to be compared to more than 593 million FTTH home passed. The first characteristic of the region is a huge take-up rate of more than 77%. It means that the success is nearly immediate when fiber is deployed in the country, which is quite different of what we observe in other zones of the world. We see here the evolution since 6 years, and from 2014 to 2019, we must notice that the number of subscribers has been multiplied by 4, compared to the number of homes passed multiplied by 2. So it means that now the force is more on the commercialization of the fiber. You see also that the growth has been lower this year. In terms of subscribers, the growth was a little bit more than 7.3%, and for home passed it was also low at 4.7%. This is due to the now maturity of the Chinese market, and the other countries where the potential is coming are starting to deploy massively for some of them, but the volume can't be compared to what has been done in the previous year in the Chinese market, of course. We also looking here in the region, we have more than 120 projects analyzed here in the Panorama, but we are looking at what kind of players are deploying FTTH network, and we know that 2/3 of fiber deployment are being performed by private players, while 31% by public telecom players, and we have a new kind of players coming, like utilities, only representing 3%. We know also that some local authorities are working with private players in some parts of APAC to deploy open access network and to reach more suburban and isolated areas. The breakdown in terms of home passed here, we'll go more in the detail, but without surprise, China is really the leader with more than 425 million home passed. And then we have the historic leader, Japan, 52 million. Indonesia is number 3 in terms of volume of home passed. So let's go now more in the details of the country analyzed. First, I would like to share with you the homes passed. The fact is that we have here to notice first the volume of China. You see here that in the number of home passed in these 21 countries, China accounting for around 72% of the total of home passed in the region. We have 60 countries with more than 1 million home passed. And you can see here on the right side of the chart, of the slide, the top 5 annual growth this year. And in green, what's representative in terms of volume of new home passed in 1 year. So you see that the growth is happening in Indonesia with plus nearly 4.8 million in terms of home passed, which is noticeable. Thailand also plus 21% in terms of growth and 2.6 million new homes passed. Philippines still plus 1% in terms of plus 20% in terms of growth and a volume of 1.3 million. And we have less significant volume, but growth also happening in Laos, a new market, and Malaysia is still there. So as I was saying, you see that, of course, since 3 years, the growth in China is lower than the previous year, which explains the global picture being also with a less important growth in terms of home passed in the APAC region. This was the home passed. If we look now at the subscribers, well, the same. China accounts for around more than 80% of the total of FTTH subscribers in APAC region. And we have 15 countries with more than 1 million subscribers. You see here in the right side of the slide, the top 5 annual growth in terms of subscribers. The volume is more in countries such as the Philippines, with a growth of plus 70% nearly. Also in Cambodia, with plus 100,000 subscribers, so a growth of plus 70%. But we see also in native markets a certain ramp up starting. Is the case of Myanmar, the case of Bangladesh, or Laos. So a lot of activity globally, I would say, in home passed and the subscribers in the southeast region of Asia Pacific. So this year we have seen the region progressively shifting toward fiber adoption. We have in 1 year 31.2 million new FTTH subscriber during this year, and plus 27.1 million FTTH home passed added in 1 year. You see for the 3 main APAC market here, the delta. Of course, those 3 main markets are mature markets today, when we are talking about China, about South Korea, and Japan. But we see all sorts of movement in those countries. First, of course, the coverage of the country in China still progressing, and more than 90% is huge. But we see some countries moving to, before moving to 1 gig, and today moving to 10 gig access, with 10 gig PON being promoted. Is the case, for example, of South Korea. In a country like Japan, there is a lot of value-added services now being added to fiber connection, and this is also quite innovative in this field, I must say, in Japan. The take-up rate is measuring here the commercial success. This is the ratio of subscribers compared to homes passed. You see here the first color in dark blue is a country with more than 80% of coverage. The case of China or Hong Kong, for example, or Vietnam also with 81. Then we have countries where the take-up rate is between 60 and 80. Here we must notice this take-up rate quite high in New Zealand or in Australia. And then we have more countries in the range of 40, like Taiwan, I would say. India is not far with 37%, and then we have below 30% with Pakistan or Kazakhstan or Indonesia. In this panorama, we are also looking at the architecture. I mean, fiber to the home toward the FTTB. And now we must say that full FTTH is progressing in the region, even in the large ASEAN cities with a lot of MDU, where fiber is now being deployed in the risers, and then we estimate that 83% of home passed are under FTTH architecture. We're also looking at the active technology, and PON, GPON has been deployed massively in the region, and we see now many announcements of new XGPON project to reach the 10 gig services. Also, in terms of house dwelling, multiple dwelling units is really where fiber is deployed, because it is in line with the type of dwelling in the Asia Pacific region. So in terms of home passed, MDU are representing 82%. We also presented here what we call the FTTH ranking. But before that, I would like to share with you what we have observed this year in the APAC region in terms of positive criteria for the FTTH adoption. First, we have seen, and this has been accentuated, of course, with the Corona pandemic, a growth in data demand, very strong in the region, and this demonstrates to the telcos and other players investing in fiber that this is the technology really suited to absorb this growth in data demand. We have seen also a government in the APAC region being active in national broadband plan, and those broadband plans are today taking into account fiber rollout. Some players that have been more suited to deploy a copper-based or cable-based network are today also more and more involved in full fiber architecture. We see also a strategy to have a fiber network being deployed more at a national level without forgetting the underserved and rural area. That's why some subsidies are being proposed, or some open access platform also are being proposed. So there is a really concern of some government to push this fiber outside the main city. This is the case in Australia, New Zealand, or Japan and China, but other countries are also in this strategy. Finally, with this positive criteria, we see also a new kind of business model arriving, a new kind of players arriving. This is the case of some utilities who are in the infrastructure business, and they know that this kind of FTTH infrastructure rollout is quite close to the infrastructure business. Also, some local municipalities can see a way of diversion to stimulate the local economy and deploy fiber to the home. We see also some negative impacts, and first of them is there's no really clear mass market application. Of course, we all know what's going on in terms of education, telemedicine, and citizen-oriented services, but there's still work to be done to have this application being a common one for citizens. The main killing application at the moment is still video, and the success of OTT platform. Also the format of video going more on 4K HDR or now 8K will drive, of course, the bandwidth. There's still some competition with a mixed architecture. G-Fast can be selected in large MDU sometimes. It's not a major architecture, but it can be seen sometimes. DOCSIS 3.1 is also being deployed, and DOCSIS 4 for the cable guys has promised to deliver more bandwidth. So there is some competition still with other platforms. We see also, depending on what's your analysis, but fixed wireless access can be complementary to an FTTH network and can be deployed waiting for fiber to the home in certain zones more challenging in terms of business model. But it can be seen also with a delay of deploying fiber, or sometimes with a competitive network, especially in rural areas. Even if I've said that some public authorities and government are more and more concerned for driving fiber rollout, there's still need for more intervention from public authorities, especially maybe in Southeast Asia, at a minimum to coordinate this rollout and not forgetting underserved areas. So this is the Asia Pacific ranking. It measures what we call the penetration rate. This is the ratio on FTTH subscribers to be compared to the total number of households in one country. So to be in this ranking, this penetration rate has to be 1% as a minimum. And you have to include a minimum of 200K household in your country. So the leaders here are countries like Singapore. The leader is the leader in APAC with nearly 95% in terms of penetration rate, followed by China, Hong Kong, or Japan. We see also other countries moving to the top of this ranking, and it is the case of New Zealand, 58%, but also in Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Malaysia, or Indonesia being there. Vietnam has done a big growth and now is close to 50%. And in other parts of APAC, well, there are still a place for growth for countries such as Indonesia, or Australia, or Philippines, Cambodia, or Thailand. So what are the key conclusion for this panorama? First, concerning FTTH adoption. So the figures are there. More than 593 million homes, and this represents, in terms of coverage for the zone, the 21 country, more than 56% in terms of homes. So largely more than half of the household have been reached by fiber today in the region. We see countries experiencing strong growth and increase in their home pass with more than 20%. This is the case of Indonesia, of Thailand, of Philippines, and Laos. On the major market, countries like China and Japan have added more than respectively 22 million and 1.5 million FTTH subscribers in 2019. And we see also fiber adoption happening in terms of subscribers in Philippines, Cambodia, and Bangladesh. Nevertheless, we see an effort being made for fiber adoption, migration for fixed broadband subscribers, and where the coverage is almost complete. So this is an example, I would say. Of course, there is China, but also countries such as Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan. There is emerging technologies being there, and we all know that in Tokyo, we hope that in July this year, Olympic Games will take place, where 5G will be showcases in the region. This is also for us a driver for the promotion of fiber deployment, where fiber will be used in terms of backhaul, in terms of front haul, to have a true quality proven 5G rollout. We see evolution of business model. As I was saying, more and more telco who were involved in copper-based network or in cable-based network are today nearly convinced that they have to deploy full fiber to the home. And we see also new players arriving in the game, such as utility company, which are today more and more concerned on deploying fiber to the home. This technology, to conclude, are of course suited for the future and what we call for the Z generation. This is the case of my child, Jules, that was born end of August 2016. He was very sad at the beginning because we didn't have fiber in our home. But since this year, we have fiber at home, and Jules was very happy at this first day of school this year. So it was my pleasure to share those figures with you, and I am now open to your question with pleasure.
Thank you, Roland, for an interesting presentation. So I will leave the floor to our Vice President Raj Mathai and Roland now for having some question and answer session. Before we go to the audience's questions, so I think Raj has some questions from our council's side. So please welcome Raj.
Okay, thank you, Rushafi. Thank you, Roland, for the great presentation. It was very, very informative, and I think it's very interesting to see where we are moving on now. I think maybe one first question related to in your graph, you could see a steady growth of FTTH and B subscribers and home pass. Do you expect that the number of subscribers in 2020 will be significantly different due to the novel coronavirus outbreak? Because I can expect that people who is working from home, family and social contacts are happening from a distance. So I imagine more broadband subscriber to enhance connectivity quality, things like that. What is your expectation in this?
Yes, you're right. Of course, it's a very tragic thing what's happening with the pandemic, Corona. But the positive thing I would say for the network is that it demonstrates that fiber to the home is really needed now for one country to be present on the economic scene, I would say, and to react in front of this pandemic. As you were saying, teleworking has been the case, and it's still the case. I'm still at home today talking to all of you guys. So I think this will pursue, on one side, some hesitant players to go fiber to the home. This will pursue also government to support this fiber adoption, especially in some isolated area. And also this will push some more reluctant residential to connect to fiber to the home. So as I was saying at the beginning of my presentation, still the APAC region has not the same growth of 3 years ago because of the maturity of the Chinese market, but there's still a relay to be taken in Southeast Asia countries. And I really think that this sad episode of coronavirus will push for this adoption.
Okay, thank you. I hope that more fiber demand is expected, especially end of this year, next year.
Right.
Okay. I have a second question. You briefly mentioned about, let's say, the Olympic 5G introduction and showcase during the Tokyo Olympic. Of course, a little delayed, but we still expect it will be coming. But do you expect that? I mean, it would be like in this year, July, next month would be a very showcase and huge advertisement for 5G. So, but do you expect now, because of this pandemic situation, that there will be a delay coming for the 5G network deployment? And of course, the trade war situation also, we were expecting a little delay, but I think this pandemic, whether it will be more delayed than expected, or still people will be going for the network deployment and ignoring that whole pandemic situation and trade war situation.
Well, what we're observing at the moment, we did an important study for one government here in Europe, trying to measure what is the impact of the virus in the deployment of fiber network. I think this will apply also to 5G. I mean, the deployment are not stopped in the current period, but they are just longer because you must take some measure, you must take some cleaning procedure that was not really the case a few months ago. So I really think that there will be a period where the deployment will take more time, but won't stop. So there will be maybe a delay of 1 quarter, I would say, or a few months. But the movement will continue, especially in a country in Japan, in Tokyo, where the density of population is very high. You can deploy a new base station overlay also on the current network. So I have good hope that the showcase during Tokyo Olympic, if there's not a new epidemic episode, but if the situation is continuing like this to getting better, I have good hope that the showcase will happen in Tokyo.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Rusafi, you take.
Yeah, thank you, Raj, for having some questions to Roland. So we will move to our audience's questions. I will take some of the questions from the audience's section. So far, I have got a couple of questions in my box. The first one, basically three questions from Behzad from Siena to Roland. So the first question is, does HFC is included as part of FTTX technology, or is it FTTC?
So as I was saying, we obeying to the definition of the FTGS of all the council worldwide of what we call fiber to the home or fiber to the building. And sometimes, if you are a coax cable guy, you have two solutions. If you stop the last point of connection with fiber outside of the MDU on the curb of the street, this is not fiber to the building, so this isn't counted. But if you put your fiber at the basement of the building and then terminates with coax, this is fiber to the building, so this is count at FTTH, FTTB. So this really depends of the kind of architecture of the cable guy.
Okay, thank you, Roland. So I'm just requesting all the audiences to send us questions in the control panel, in the question box, if you have any. So the next question again from Behzad, that Australian penetration rate, I think 15%, is quite disappointing to him. How it was calculated? Is it only for 2019?
Yes, all the penetration rate have been measured for 2019. Well, we all know the difficulties of the national NBN in Australia, who has been evolving during the years, I would say. So now it is a multi-platform NBN in Australia, and the success is still progressing, I would say, but of course the success is not maybe as it was expected.
Okay, so the next question again from Behzad. He has asked that as the 5G as one of the 5G application is ultra low latency application, how FTTH technology can provide time sensitive networking features?
Well, there is no problem of short latency with fiber. I think you can. This is a matter of quality of service given by the telcos, I would say. But we see some example of short latency and application being provided in fiber, and even some players. It is the case of My Republic in Singapore and now in New Zealand. Those players can promote short latency, can monetize short latency application, and you pay more to have a short latency access. It is especially well suited for online gaming player. So fiber is really one of the best media, I would say, to provide short latency application. It will come also with 5G, but on our side, it is not the case for today rollout. This will be the case more on the second wave of 5G rollout, with more proximity cells being deployed. So an application such as autonomous vehicle will need short latency, but this is not for today, and more on a range of 2 years or more.
Okay, thank you, Roland. So again to you, the question is from Jitendra Kumar, who is from Pitney Bowes Software. He has asked that based on the analysis, which countries would be investing most in FTTX rollout in next 4 to 6 quarters in absolute numbers on fiber infrastructure?
Well, clearly the zone of growth in the region is on the Southeast Asia part of the region. There is still a growth in place, of course, for the Indian subcontinent, but there's still place for growth in Southeast countries such as Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Bangladesh. Those countries, those Southeast countries, Thailand also, are the country where the growth for sure will happen in the years to come.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is from our secretary. It's basically, he has asked that do you have any FTTH deployment information in terms of APAC island countries like Fiji, Tonga? So Tim San, I think the least qualifying percentage penetration rate is 1% to qualify for our APAC Panorama. So the island numbers are very minimal, and they couldn't qualify for the Panorama report. But we will, I think in future, we can look for the island nations. The next question is again from Jitendra Kumar. Oh, I think you already answered this question. So the next question is from Lisa Person. She is from, okay, she asked that, is the report with the figures of homes passed per country available online? So yes, this will be available online after a couple of days in the early next week. And the next question is from Gary McLaren from Hong Kong. I think is from HKBN. He has asked that, do you see any developments to use PON architecture for 5G front-haul networks? To Roland, please.
Well, things are happening on this field. Because vendors have in mind that players that have deployed already PON architecture fiber rollout have an advantage when they will deploy the 5G. So I see several vendors working on specific PON architecture to provide at the same time access to residential, access to enterprise, and access to base station. Especially, this is the goal of the NG-PON architecture, when you can really differentiate the traffic for each of your markets. So you can build on your existing PON network to be really to have really an advantage for deploying 5G. But for sure, PON architecture will be used and are starting to be used for 5G backhaul.
Okay, so the next question is from Maheshwar Sriyapu. He's from FIBERify Incorporation. His question is, how is the health of fiber maintained on the field? What technologies are being used? Roland.
Sorry, what? I didn't understand the question. What is the?
So what technologies are being used in the fiber, like the health sector? Because of the load latency and some other technical terms.
The health sector?
Yes. So any specific technologies like GPON and other kind of technologies are being used for the health sector in fiber industry?
Health, you mean medicine?
Yes, medicine.
Well, e-health, maybe e-health.
E-health, yeah. E-health. Okay. Well, as I was saying, we know many citizen-oriented application, and this is also one of the application being pushed during the COVID. Because people were frightened to go and see the medics. Telemedicine consultation have been promoted during this COVID. So everybody was saying that this was feasible, but nobody was really using this. And now people can discover that telemedicine is happening. So there is many different applications on telemedicine. Teleconsultation is the easiest one. Of course, we are not talking here about telediagnosis or telechirurgical operation. Of course, this will push and this will need some critical quality KPI to be performed. So I think things are progressing, and this teleconsultation is a first step. But if we want to go further, we need to have also all the medicine ecosystem, all the medicine shareholders being involved also in this kind of application.
Okay, so the next question is from Emmanuel. His question is on the emerging technologies, basically, as we are talking about 5G, how is the rate of WDM products in FTTH from coming 6 months?
WDM?
Yes, WDM.
Well, for me, there is today available a product with multiple bandwidth being available on NG-PON. So there is a choice of different technologies. So if you want to implement, as I was saying, this NG-PON technology with different lambdas for different segments, it is available today. So you can go and discuss with your best vendor to have this available. This is what I was saying. One of the beauty of PON that you can address with different quality, different segment, those the different market, and especially with the arrival of 5G.
Okay. So the next question is from Umair Siddiqui. His question is, how do you see the adoption of fiber management using ESRI or other tools in the market?
I don't have a vision on this, sorry.
Okay. Next question is from Jan Moremans. The question is, how do you see the role of utilities in APAC evolving?
I've been saying that during my presentation. Us at EDAT, we are working directly with several utilities around the world, helping them to look at their competitive landscape and helping them to select the vendors to build an FTTH network on their OpenGW network. It is really a movement going on in several parts of the world, and this is happening also in Asia Pacific. Those players are accustomed to have a business plan running on 15 or 20 years, having a return of investment after 5 or 6 years. So this is really on the DNA to work on such a long-term investment, and then they can act as an open access network, because they are not also a service provider. So some of them can be reluctant to address directly the final market, should it be residential or enterprise, and have better solution to go on a partnership with the service provider or playing as an open access network. But no, this is really for me a force, and you are very well positioned as a power utility to go and FTTH. This is not new. We have seen in the past 10 years or 15 years ago things happening in Denmark with some power utilities, some of them being successful, some of them not being successful. So of course you have to be cautious on your strategy.
Okay, thank you. So I think we are almost at the end. The last question is from Behzad. He sent you regards, Roland. He said that he worked with you on a project in Australia. He sent you regards. And his last question is, what is the next trend technology in PON? WDM PON can be fitted? Or what is the estimated speed? Do you have any clue?
Thank you, Behzad, for your regard. I'll send you mine also. Yes, the next movement is available today. We have NG-PON being there, 10G symmetric, evolution are arriving, different lambdas can be used. So I think if you are today an investor, telco, a power utility, investing in fiber, you have to go PON, and you have a large choice of technology, an evolutive also technology to be implemented in your network to face the different market for fiber to the home, and to face also the wave of 5G coming. So technology is here.
Okay, so I think we're almost at the end of today's webinar. So great. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here even in this pandemic situation. We will keep our FIBERTalk webinar initiative running, and our next webinar will be announced within next couple of days. Please stay tuned through our social media and website. We will share the presentation booklet with all of you end of this week. And if you have any comments, observations, just let us know. Thanks again for joining us today. We will see you next time. So thank you, Roland. Thank you, Raj, for joining us today.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks.